Hello everyone and welcome back to another Draft Today video set. My name is Jeff Hoagland and welcome. In our first pack here, we've got a kind of medium rare. We have Deny here. Interrupt target card when a troop enters play under your control. If this is in your hand, it gets -2 cost until end of turn. This card's probably limited playable. I don't know if it's something I'm interested in picking up though. We also have a Chastise and a Decree of Banishing here. Decree of Banishing is probably one of the best removal spells in this format. So I'm not sure if I want to pass that up for a a Deny or not. There's multiple good Sapphire and Diamond cards in this pack regardless. I'm just going to go ahead and snake the Deny and we'll see where that takes us. I'm sure we're just going to get past mono good Diamond cards after that. That being said, nothing too exciting in this pack in terms of Sapphire or Diamond. We've got a Magnetize and a Illusionary form here, neither of which are particularly impressive. I've played Wakuna Lookout, Awaken Herald, and Reversion in Diamond decks at multiple points. Battle Scrivener is also okay, but none of these cards are super compelling to move into either of these thresholds. There's a Butcher in this pack, which might be the objectively most powerful card. Destroy target exhausted troop. There's also an Ayotachi Cavalry here, which is a quality Ruby uncommon. I think I'm going to hedge and take the Butcher just because picking up removal is rarely a bad thing to be doing in Limited, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick that up. Butcher's a little bit mediocre in the more aggressive blood decks since it has to destroy an exhausted troop, but if we end up with something a little bit more mid-range or control-y, Butcher is a quality card for keeping the board under control. In this next pack here, we don't get anything terribly exciting in Sapphire or Blood. Jorgen's Workshop is like a reasonable card. So at the start of each turn, summon a Dreadling for each different underworld race among troops you control, which seems okay. There's also a Dread Apprentice here, which is another quality, like reasonable Blood card. Scrounge 1, deploy, summon 3 Dreadlings. It's like a 3/2 for 3. That it turns 1 piece of Scrounge Fodder into 3 pieces of Scrounge Fodder, which is nice. And if we end up playing Theros, this card can push a lot of points of damage, and it's an underworld troop, so it can trigger Theros' ability. It's probably just the Dread Apprentice here, honestly. Dread Apprentice makes Shadowblade Slicer much better, and if you can enable Shadowblade Slicer, it's definitely one of the more powerful cards in this limited format. As we get past this pack, there's 2 quality underworld troops that jump out at me. Webscribe is very good, and we're starting to lean towards a Theros deck, it looks like, so I think Webscribe is going to be the pick here. 1/3 for 2 that says whenever you gain a charge, target opposing troop gets -2 power till the start of our next turn. So Theros says whenever you play an underworld troop, you gain a charge, so your troops basically shrink your opponent's troops as well. I would love it if the Skyspire Scholar wheeled back around to us, and potentially this Wicked Web spawn could be really good. We already have a Dread Apprentice, and we're likely going to be prioritizing taking like Shadowblade Slicers and other Dreadling producers, so Web Spawn is a potentially powerful card, but I think Butcher or Webscribe here is the better card objectively. We get to our next pack here. There's a few cards that are reasonable. We have a Tomb Swap here. Put target troop from your crypt back into your hands. So this can like rebuy a bomb that you have. This card's also very good with like Dread Apprentice and Shadowblade Slicer because you can re-scrounge this when you play it for the second time, so you can summon 6 Dreadlings with it if it dies, and then you put it back into play again with the Tomb Swap. That being said, I think Skyspire Scholar is the card I'm interested in taking here. 1 shot, 6 cost, draw 2 cards. It's a really pretty powerful effect. It also helps us like gum up the board in the mid game. It's also excellent with Butcher, right? Because like your opponent can attack a fairly sizable troop into this, and you get to block it and just bounce, and then you can butcher it afterwards. In this pack, it's looking like Ruby is... Yeah, Ruby might be open. There's a Boisterous Ballad in here too, but like... Yeah, it's looking like Ruby's probably open. Is Ruby just always open? It feels like. That being said, I don't think I want to move into Ruby. I'm kind of happy with the cards I have so far. So, like, I think I want to just snake this Mosh Pit Gladiator. It's a 5/1 for 4 that you can put the Intimidation gem in this, so it can't be blocked by troops with power less than it. So they have to have a 5 power troop or better to block it. And if you hit your Therod's activation, they'll have to have a 6 power or better troop to block it. So you look at this pack here, there aren't powerful blood or sapphire cards in here, and there's still this monk in here. There's a rose kitten in that last pack. I'm gonna go ahead and draft this monk and maybe take this as a sign that we should be pivoting into wild. Like I mentioned, Ruby cards looked like they were going late. Like this is a high priority pick. Wild card in this format. It's very powerful, 3/3 for 3, and then Diligence gets +2/+2 in spell shield. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the monk up on the off chance that we continue getting past powerful wild cards. There's a Sky Spire Scholar in this pack. I like that card, but like, here's a Crossing Swords. Like, this card is also very, very good in wild. It's a Diligence enabler, and it's a removal spell. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and pick up this Crossing Swords, and maybe we'll end up pivoting into wild if it's open here, as opposed to fighting with someone else for playables and these other shards we're already looking at here. You got a good spread of playables so far. You usually end up with more than enough playables in this format, so it's okay to kind of like pick up in two or three different shards and then end up not playing one of them. Potent Puffball Wield. Maybe we end up with the Blood Wild Dreadlings deck. Like, we've got a Dread Apprentice here, and then we could still like play our Butcher. Because, yeah, card's pretty powerful. The flip side of that is we could just grab the Skittering Cultivator. I guess another powerful card that wheeled all the way back around to us. I haven't drafted a Potent Puffball deck before. Let's give that a go. See how that feels. Bloodbearer is one of the better cards in these Dreadling decks, just because it makes it really difficult for your opposing aggro decks to race them. So yeah, I'm just gonna 10 out of 10 go ahead and pick that up. I'm not gonna hide the Sapphire cards just yet because we might still lean one way or another. Like, we've only got 3. We're a 3 and 3 between Wild and Sapphire. This pack's not terribly exciting. Starling Brave is probably the pickup. I guess Milky Eye Venom could potentially see play too. Target Tributral gets lethal and invincible. This is a really good card that can, like, punish people for blocking your Dreadlings. I don't know if I want to start this card in my main deck, but, like, if my opponent's blocking my Dreadlings pretty liberally, which often they are because we're able to generate so many of them in this archetype, then this could be very reasonable. And Jurassic Spark. This card's, like, pseudo-playable in a deck full of Dreadlings, so let's grab that for now just in case we get, like, Dread Botanist or other things that make cheap Dreadlings. Traverts and transforms a troop into a 6/6. Another Potent Puffball, and the Tomb Swap came back around. I'm just going to grab Puffball. In a deck that makes Dreadlings, this card is just a complete and total bomb. And, like, this is a 3/3 and Shroomkin you control get +2 power when this attacks, and it's a Shroomkin, so this is a 5/3 when it attacks. Explosive Interlude is still there. Okay. I think I'm hiding these Sapphire cards for now. Hide the Jurassic Spark as well, and probably the Milky Eye Venom. We got about 8-ish cards I'm happy to play out of this pack. It's not bad. Curve's a touch high, but... kind of the dredge end of the pack here. Pick up our last few. I feel like a lot of the good Dreadling producers are in the set 5 pack in this format. The 3rd pack in the go round. Get some bombs here maybe. Okay. This pack's got a lot going on in it. So we get this Llama Herder here, which, you know, makes me wish we were in Diamond. wonder if that's worth splashing. It's probably not. There's a Cottontail Warcaller and a Call of the Deepwood here that are also both very, very reasonable cards. I feel like Call of the Deepwood is probably the pickup here. Conscripts and Ardent Durandal Troop with cost 5. Usually this card gives you something that's like pretty far ahead of the curve. That being said, Cottontail Warcaller is pretty good as well. Just like deploy Conscript 2 Underworld Troops, so it's like 3 bodies for the cost of in 1. I'm going to grab the Cottontail Warcaller here. I think that's probably pretty close. Nothing else in this pack that really jumps out at me in our 2 shards that we're in. If we're still in Sapphire, the Shackling Shrines could be good, but I think I'd rather cement what we have going on here so far. This pack's got a lot of goodies in it. Man, there's a Underworld Officer here. That'll make someone pretty happy. If we... This isn't a reason to be in... Is this a reason to be in Sapphire Blood? Feel like it's not. I'm going to go ahead and grab this Shoku's Garden here. This is another card that makes it difficult for people to race the Dreadling producing decks. There's also another Dread Apprentice in here, so hopefully the Apprentice wheels back around to us. Yeah. Also a Wild's Favor here that can make 4 Dreadlings too, so I feel like I should prioritize the Shoku's Garden just because it allows us to gain a lot of life and make racing very difficult for our opponents. So whenever a Shroomkin you control dies, you gain a life. Probed Warpair is one of the better cards in this archetype. It's a 5/5 for 3 that says at the start of your turn it gets -1/-1 and makes a Dreadling, so usually gets to beat in for a few points of damage. Worth noting there's a Shadowblade Slicer in this pack, so we'd really love it if that wheels, or potentially the Wicked Web spawn, but I think the Probed Warpair is the card we were looking to take out of that pack for sure. Would love to pick up like 2 to 3 Slicers in this pack, just like go ham on them. Maybe another Dread Apprentice, Tomb Swap would also be reasonable. Let's look at this next pack here. We really don't have anything in here that's particularly good in Blood or Wild. I'm going to go ahead and snake the Web Scribe out of this pack because if that Underworld Officer ends up wheeling, there's a non-zero chance that we play these Web Scribes and the Underworld Officer as a Sapphire Splash in our Blood Wild deck, especially if we end up getting like Underworld Decrees in the 3rd pack. In this next pack here, we have another copy of Crossing Sword, which is like an okay piece of removal. It's actually pretty reasonable with Dreadlings a lot of the time too, because you can like use a Dreadling that you've produced alongside this to make it battle something else. We could also speculatively take this Tactician and try to be in like try to just play like 3 shard Dreadlings. Because this card's really powerful Dreadlings, right? Like robots you control get +1/+1 this turn. To grab this or not to grab this is the question. I feel like the pick is between the Tactician and the Crossing Swords here. Already got a good number of playables. I'm going to grab the Tactician speculatively, and hopefully that Underworld Officer comes back around, and then we have a really good reason to play all 4 of the Sapphire cards. Maybe like trim this monk since it's a double wild threshold, just like make sure we're only playing single thresholds for all of our shards. Nothing super exciting in this pack. There's a Rose Kitten here, I guess. We're definitely not an Apprentice Earthcaller deck. We're not going to be producing Valors. There's a Roidbot here. I'm going to grab the Roidbot, and let's try and be ambitious. And I'll be kind of surprised if the Underworld Officer wheels, but honestly, playing the Web Scribes is probably worth it alone. Probably want to prioritize picking up things that make Dreadlings at this point. If we're really fortunate that Wild's Favor could wheel back around to us. I think I'm going to hide this Monk for now. It's a powerful card, but like I said, it's kind of awkward if we're trying to play a third Shard, because then we have to get double Wild consistently for it. Zenthal's Hunger, very reasonable card in the Dreadling decks. Sacrifice a troop, initial cost to play it. You gain 4 life and draw 2 cards. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that up. I guess there's a Burly Botanist here too, right? Like that's a big Mamma Jamma. Yeah, actually I'm gonna stay on theme. Let's get this Burly Botanist. I feel like since I picked up this Tactician and we've got these 2 Puffballs, like really need to prioritize getting things that can make Dreadlings consistently, and this definitely fits that bill. And then there's a Tomb Swap that we were hoping to see to rebuy things like our Dread Apprentice. So yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and pick that up there. And then we're 2 packs until we could possibly see the Underworld Officer come back. I won't be too surprised if it doesn't, because that's one of the bomb cards in the format. We also passed the Tactician at one point, so if we get a second one of those, that would be good as well too. We've got like 3 cards that power up our Dreadlings though, so that's probably not an unreasonable number. The Tactician and the Web Scribe came back around out of our first pack. I think I'd rather prioritize taking the Tactician just to like make our Dreadling draws as obnoxious as possible. And honestly, looking at this deck, the number of like payoffs we have for the Dreadlings, I've been kind of waffling back and forth in my head, thinking about whether or not I want to play Theros as our champion or Ivan. I think this might actually be better off as a Slagpot deck. We've got 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 Underworld troops, and the Wild's Favor and the Tactician came back around. Huh. Man, this is kind of close at this point. I feel like the Favor has to be correct here. Just like make a 4 Dreadling burst is just like very lethal with these potent Puffballs and these Tacticians. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and grab the Wild's Favor, I think. Also randomly gain a life or create some Valors to push through our other troops. Get some more payouts for like our Shoku Garden and such. Sagai Coin's probably playable. Probably want to be a little bit resource heavy in this deck anyway, since we're trying to play 3 Shards. Web Scribe gets marginally worse if we play Ivan instead of Theros, which is probably reason to play Theros. How many Dreadling producers do we have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 so far. Depending on, I think, which champion we end up playing is probably going to depend on how our third pack ends up going here. If we get a lot of, like, Dread Botanists and, like, Dread Harvest and stuff like that, we can probably afford to play Theros, but otherwise, we likely need to play Ivan for consistency's sake. Magnetize is, like, pseudo-playable removal, right? Like, target troop opposing troops -2 power for each artifact in your crypt. Can basically neutralize a threat. Worth noting, as expected, the Underworld Officer did not come back around, but that being said, I think playing the Web Scribes and the Tacticians doesn't seem completely unreasonable. This card's kind of mediocre in these decks. You have to actually sacrifice the troops, so if they block your Dreadlings in combat, you don't get to deal the damage to them. This pack's going to give someone a bomb. We got the Glory here, which voids each troop with defense 3 or less, but we're definitely not in the market for that. There's a Gruesome Deed here, which is just a pretty quality piece of removal in a deck that can produce Dreadlings, so we're 10 out of 10 picking this up as our draft pick here. Pack's pretty good for Ruby too. There's an Ashwood Firebrand and a Warband Ruffian, which are both quality Ruby cards. And there's also a War Party Guide and a Tinkertron. Usually this card wheels. I'm hoping Tink's Wheels. If we're playing the Splash, Tinkertron's probably one of the cards that can help us enable that, but I don't think I can pass the removal as quality as Gruesome Deed will be in this deck for Tinkertron. Pack 3, pick 1. Don't get me wrong, Tinks is my boy, but definitely need some Gruesome Deeds. Tinkertron's also kind of sweet with Web Scribe, because you can like gain the charge as a quick action that he offers, so you can get people inside of combat. And we immediately get past another Tinkertron, and Tinks is my boy, and there's nothing else super exciting that produces Dreadlings in here. Cavern Sentry's okay, and hopefully the Cavern Sentry wheels to us, but I think we should grab the Tinkertron just to make our splash nice and easy and consistent. Up next, sweet, we found a Dread Harvest here. This is one of the cards we're looking for that can produce Dreadlings consistently for us. It's a little bit weaker in a deck with 3 thresholds in it, but it's probably still fine. There's a Cruel Venom Blade here as well, which is a quality card that's a scrounge payoff, but I think Dread Harvest is definitely the droid we are looking for out of this pack. We're already at plenty of playables here. I'm just going to kind of stay flexible for the time being. It's possible that we end up with enough playables in just 2 shards that we end up cutting our 3rd. Mechanized Aerialist is a card that's not terribly exciting here because it's double Sapphire Threshold. It's kind of cost prohibitive for us. Underworld Decree is basically a better Roid bot for us, so I think I'm going to go ahead and grab that here. There's a Dread Demise in here that could potentially be pretty powerful for us as well, but I think I'd rather prioritize taking the Underworld Decree. I'm going to hide Roidbot for now. I'm going to hide Magnetize for now. I'm going to hide Mosh Pit Gladiator for now, kind of bring our curve down a little bit. This gives us 20 playable cards thereabouts. We got another Gruesome Deed in this pack, and there's also a Wazashi War Bunny. I think I want to prioritize taking the removal here. It's probably ideal. Hopefully the War Bunny comes back around to work with our Dreadlings a little bit more. In this pack, we're faced with Underworld Decree or the Wazashi War Bunny. This deck's got a lower curve, so I feel like I probably only want to play 17 resources, so I'm kind of inclined to take the Underworld Decree. That being said, there's a Cavern Sentry here, which is just like a playable troop that's going to trigger Theros while also summoning Dreadlings for us, so that's probably the pick. This is another payoff for Dreadlings, though, to make them scarier. Probably between these two. I'm going to grab the Cavern Sentry for now, I think. Another Dread Harvest. Dread Harvests get better in multiples, so yep, let's go ahead and pick that up there. We have to start making difficult cuts and figuring out what we want to get rid of. Maybe trim this Cottontail Warcaller at the top end, since it's not on theme for us. Dread Demise in this pack summons 3 Dreadlings and scrounge 2. Your Shroomkin get +1 power. Worth noting that this gives Potent Puffball +1 power permanently, which is kind of sweet. That being said, Koru Infiltrator is kind of a very reasonable card. Sacrifice a troop, this gets life drain and unblockable. This gives us a nice way to utilize Dreadlings we're producing from like Burly Botanist going long, but I guess we don't have any like consistent stream of Dreadling producers. I think I want the Dread Demise. Dread Demise kind of pushes me in the direction of wanting to play Ivan as the champion too, because this rewards us for like being able to summon a lot of Dreadlings in one turn. Nothing too exciting that we're interested in playing in this pack. I think objectively speaking, Warband Ruffian's the most powerful card, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that. Ivan plays well with our Gruesome Deeds as well. Get another Cavern Sentry here, sign me up. So Ivan's kind of at tension because we want to have multiple different Underworld races if we play Ivan, but at the same time, if we play Ivan, I don't really want these Web Scribes because they're worse because I'm not generating extra random charges. It's looking like that Tinkertron's not going to wheel, so I'm glad we got the second one, I guess. Nothing in here particularly playable. Grab the Forlorn Soldier. I'm going to hide this for now so I can think about my deck without the resource in it. Man, just no one was in Ruby this draft. Warband Ruffian and Iotachi Brute still in this pack. Both very reasonable and powerful cards. Siege Shores might be a reasonable top end for us. Just like, we're going to be producing Dreadlings that trigger Assault, and the Dread Harvest make Double Wild a little bit more feasible than Double on the other thresholds. What if I cut these Web Scribes and then we play Ivan? This doesn't seem awful. Shambling Junker. This gets +1/+1 for each artifact in your crypt. That's kind of a total bomb. If we're producing Dreadlings, this card could be very, very large. Yeah, let's make that up. I guess we could... The start of your turn, summon a Dreadling. Might be in the market for that. I don't know how good this card actually is. It's definitely weak to removal. We could put it on kind of a crappy troop anyways. Horn Giraffe, we might board in against a flying deck at some point. So we're at 25 cards here. I probably want to cut to at least 23. So that means we have a minimum of 2 cuts we need to make here. Crossing Swords probably isn't particularly powerful, especially as we get like 2 Gruesome Deeds and a Butcher here. So maybe that can go. And then we've got one more cut we need to make here. Yeah, all of these cards are pretty much fit on theme here. Maybe it's the Living Factory. It's just not powerful enough just because it's so weak to removal. I think the Cavern Sentries and the Tacticians are worth playing. They also give us Dwarves, so this feels like the way it shook out. We want to play Ivan. As our champion, summon Dreadling for each race among Underworld troops we control. We've got 13 troops, and how many of them are... 9 of them are Underworld? That's probably a little bit low, actually. How many Dreadling producers do we have? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Dreadling producers. If I play Web Scribes, I feel a little bit better. I guess Dread Demise isn't good enough. I'm just like better off playing Web Scribes so we can play Theros as the champion. That doesn't seem completely unreasonable. Maybe we don't need this Siegesaurus as a large beater, just plan to go on the go wide plan. And how do our thresholds end up looking here? Do we end up with any? We didn't end up with any double thresholds, which is great for us. We're definitely like base, blood, wild with the lowest percent. Actually, we're equal parts blood and sapphire here, so wild's the most important to us. So we probably want to go like 7 wild and then 5 and 5 on these other two. Doesn't seem completely unreasonable. We've got an Underworld Decree and a Tinkertron here, so like both of those can produce thresholds that we may or may not be missing. So that means we're basically at 9 Wild, 7 Sapphire, 7 Blood, so that's like okay. We could get this Roidbot in here. Actually, it's funny, right? Like Roidbot with Tactician actually attacks as a 2/2. So like maybe this is worth playing in here. It's a tough build. It also could just be because I like haven't played this archetype really before, so I'm not 100% sure what we want to be doing. Another thing I've had in mind, like I mentioned when we were drafting this, that Butcher just isn't particularly good in aggressive decks, and our deck's definitely more aggressive, so maybe I'm going to go ahead and cut that for now and add the Roidbot in here since it has the upside of being a robot for the Tactician. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go ahead and hit save here, and then I'm excited to see how these games play out. I think I'm going to do some commentary for at least some of these matches because I'm excited to see how this archetype that I haven't really drafted before plays out. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching, folks. Remember, if you enjoy the video, to like it on YouTube and share it on your social media. And stay tuned for the wrap-up and our gameplay.